Welcome everybody. My name is Bryan Dean, and I just started here at NorvaNivel, but I'm a space futurist. Now, I know what you're thinking in your head. You're wondering, what is a space futurist? Hopefully, as we go through this, we'll start to talk about that. You'll start to get it, right? Before, 2 weeks ago, before I started here, I was working with about 30 brand new first-year teachers, working with curriculum, understanding what pedagogy is, and how are we moving instructional design, and how are we talking like designers. So one of my big passions is talking about STEAM and how both architecture and space design kind of supports that idea of not only of creativity, but also of problem solving and all other dispositions. So if you're unfamiliar with STEAM, it is this concept about engaging students around subjects, those subjects being science, technology, engineering, arts, right, and math, right? And it aims to spark an interest in lifelong learning. All of those things sound really great, but what is it really about? Well, we know that teaching relevant in-demand skills, but also in-demand dispositions right now is where our future needs to be, right? It is the idea that innovators are in an ever-evolving process. It's an iterative process of design thinking. It's an iterative process of design speech and design talk. And if we are not preparing our students for that, right, they're gonna start falling behind further and further. Now, I'm gonna get to the product, but I want to set this idea up. It's not about 21st century skills. How many people heard about 21st century skills? It's always talked about. It's not about 21st century skills, because we don't live in a 21st century. We live in an exponential age, which means that we used to have 100 years of innovation. Now we have 100 years, we have 2,000 years worth of innovation that's going to happen. There is no way that you could possibly teach the skills that's going to be needed for that. The bigger question is, how do we begin teaching for an exponential age? How do we begin talking about dispositions of students, right? When we talk about, if I were to ask you, and I just want you to think in your head, what are the residuals of education? What are the outcomes of education that you want, if you were an educator, you would want students, or if you have children, that you would want your children to come out with? Do you want them to just know algebra? Do you want them to just chase down the presidents of the United States, being able to name those? Right? You don't. Right? You want dispositions. You want students who are creative, right? You want individuals who are resilient. You want folks that are full of wonder and see different opportunities in different places. You all came to this booth for a reason, right? It's part of that. It's part of that full of wonder. You want folks that are compassionate, right? You want folks that are questioning, that are problem solvers, that are independent, that are flexible. There are a million other pieces out there. Those are not skills. Those are dispositions of humanity. And those, if we want to catch up to if we want to be in that exponential age, we can't teach just the skills of what it means to be a maker. We have to teach the skills of what it means to be creative. We have to teach the disposition of how to look at the world in a creative sense, right? The other side of it is, I'm sure you folks have seen this before traveling around. You've probably only seen this without this, right? This is what Kayla was talking about this morning. I've always found the first two kind of limiting. This idea, no, don't throw things at me just yet, right? I'm not saying that I don't believe in equity and equality. What I'm saying is I find them limiting, right? Because equality is everybody gets to stand on the box. And it doesn't matter how tall you are, it doesn't matter how short you are, everybody gets to stand on the box to watch the baseball game. Equity, we say, well, you know what? We're gonna go in and we're gonna retrofit that, right? And we're gonna give everybody a different set of boxes, and guess what? This student gets 2 boxes, right? I say, let's go a step further. Let's start giving folks agency. How are they going to move? Where are they going to move to? The issue has never been the number of boxes you get to stand on. The issue has been the type of fence that's been there, right? If we intentionally redesign that fence, now in this case, it's not as aesthetically pleasing. It's a chain link fence, right? I'm sure I'm going to give it to the NorvaNivelians, my other NorvaNivelians. Is that what we're calling ourselves? I love it. NorvaNivelians to redesign. Right, but if we give that chain link fence, if we put that there, guess what? This student doesn't always have to stay there. The smaller student doesn't have to stay there. They can move. Don't get me wrong, you're gonna need a fence. That's a major league baseball game, right? There is no way you're gonna just let kids just hang out there, right? But you gotta change what the environment looks like so we can start giving them agency within the environment, because it's the thing that they see the most. So here's a common STEAM space. So this is my daughter's STEAM space. We engage in robotics quite a bit. This is one of the robots they're building. Her team's working over there. That's my daughter right there. This is actually, so this is a world, they've competed at the world level, and they've won championships within the world, right? So this is a  STEAM space currently. I see that you're all very excited. right? I know that you, on the video, you can't capture their faces, but they're on the edge of their seats going, it's so innovative. They're not, right? Because it's a bunch of spaces thrown together for the moment. Here's some of the problems that I see within those. First of all, it's the clutter. There's no place to put anything, right? All of these things, I can't tell you how many bits we go through in a week because we're like, where did we put it, right? And they're constantly drilling. So there's the issue of the clutter. Like you're looking for this hexagram, you can't find another one. There's probably one somewhere over here in the picture, but we can't see it. The other issue, so this is my lovely daughter. The other issue is the way that she's got to drill, right? It's not made for her, right? It's one unitask table that they're going to drill on and beat up, right? She's got to bend down, she's got to drill through it, right? This is her spotter. He's otherwise engaged, I guess, right? But so that's a problem just for her, right? Here's the other problem. Same kid. His name's Nick. Really brilliant kid. He's down on his knees right now, looking along this sight line to see if these things line up. He's on his knees doing that, right? We want them to be creative. We want them to build in a great space. Yet we can't provide them with that space. So they also have mentors. I'm one of the mentors, but these are two of the other mentors. The mentors have to have a bird's eye view talking about the robot, right? Working through the robot. It's too tall, they can't reach in and get it, right? These students become disengaged. There are plenty of times that they're on their knees working. Common STEAM space right now. Let's talk about the NorvaNivel STEAM space. Let's see what the difference there is. Here's the first piece. Remember, the mission in NorvaNivel, free thought, flexibility, and the attainment of individualized and inclusive learning. Individualized and inclusive, those things exist at the same time. There's a paradox. We're going to talk about paradoxes. Learning environments that encourage a lifelong learning journey. First one, STEAM space T-table. What I love about the T-table, one of the big issues, right? There's always an issue about storage. Where's the storage going to go? Where can it be? And then usually the storage happens right under here where the students are sitting. That's no longer storage, right? Now students are back here in the same issue working in this way, right? With the T-tables on the sides, it's easily accessible. I can put the things that I need in that space, right? That leads us to this idea of areas of autonomy. And typically, when we're talking in education, we're talking about 5 major areas of autonomy. Time, right? How long I get to do something, when the due date is, how long it takes me. Task, what is it that needs to be done? The team, the people that we put together. Technique, how do I get it done, right? So what I need to get done, how I get it done. And then the final one, space. What the beautiful thing about space is as I've said, it's the most aesthetic thing. It's the thing that we see the most. If we can begin giving students some structured autonomy around their space, what we end up building is they end up building their area, owning their area, and then using what they need to use. The T-table helps with that. Then there's the STEAM space system. I love the STEAM space system. I want to find a way to get one to all of my robotics teams. If you take a look at the STEAM space system, what I love is that it comes with different tops that I can move. That's this thing that this is sitting on right now. These tops come off. They don't come off easy. It's going to take 2 people, right? So that you can still hang on them, right? But it's strong enough that you can take this off and you get 4 different tops, right? All the way from chemicals, right? To a whiteboard, to a regular plyboard, right? All of a sudden, that picture of my daughter over there drilling down, she's got a space that is made for us, that sits up for her, right? And that she can drill on appropriately. And then she can change the top for what she needs if they're designing ideas. What the STEAM space does for me is it creates this idea of connected autonomy, where I can build and I can create my space with all the different pieces that get attached, right? I can create my space, but yet we can all work on something. So Mary, you and I are working on something here, right? Todd's deciding that he's working on something over there, right? And my man Franco back there is working on something else over here. We all work on it in the same area, right? But we all work on different pieces, right? So we're still collaborating, yet I have some ownership. That's a paradox of autonomy. That's a paradox of autonomy. So it's knowing that my single efforts contribute to the whole. It's a deeper ownership of a single activity, but overall ownership of the whole thing we're building. Utilizing my skills to develop that layered ownership. You have pieces like the Conclave collection, right? Where students can move in their environment, we can bring it together and we can have this kind of small group discussion, but we can also move back here and we can take our notes. We can write down our ideas, right? We can plan right here, create artifacts right in time, and then we can talk about that visual learning that's happening. What this provides for us are some of these other ideas of paradoxes of space. Space needs to be bounded, but it needs to be open as well. So there needs to be confines in it, but we also need to be able to explore it in how we see it. It needs to be hospitable, right? But it also needs to be charged, and it needs to be lots of energy within it. It needs to invite the voice of the individual, what Mary has to say, but it also has to have big voice for the traditions that we understand and we know, the routines that we have in our classroom. Right? It should honor little stories of those involved and big stories of that discipline and tradition. It has to have the voice of the group. It has to have solitude, but it has to surround it with the resources of your community. Franco's over here working by himself, right? If he has a question, he just has to ask his partners, right? We're all working at one of these, and we're working at this tea table. I get my own space to write within that, right? However, if Mike has a question, he can just ask me. These are big pieces. We also need to welcome both silence and speech, which I know from you guys hearing me talk, you're like, well, that's a hard part for him, is that silence piece. But there are times that I just need to work in my introversion, and that's okay. I need to have that, but I need to know that Emily Ann, is that it? Yeah, that Emily Ann's here, right? That I can reach out. All of those pieces come together. Jenga collection, same idea. Right? It's intentional, flexible design. All of these pieces come together with layers of intentional, flexible design. Right? As we move towards that exponential age, you need furniture that's going to do that. You need space and educational design that's going to do that. Right? So I may not know all the ways to sit on this rocker. I know 5, right? But somebody, Mary, you might find another one. Right? And that's the idea of that exponential growth, right? It's built to be inclusive for all learners. It offers both variety, right? So it looks different, but it also offers options. How many ways can you use it, Mary? How many ways can you use it, Chris? Maybe some of them are the same. Maybe some of them aren't. What is your jagged profile as a learner? It's not just this. You may need this, and then this, and then this. And as you draw the line, it becomes jagged. It creates emotional safe space because it's my space. I have ownership in it, right? But I don't have ownership in it alone. And it builds just-in-time collaborative spaces like we just threw one up here and we started talking, right? Again, for me as an educator, it always comes back to this. I don't want to stay in equality and I don't want to stay in equity. I want us to move towards agency, right? Because that's the only way we're going to get students ready for this exponential age. It's the only way any learner is going to end up in that exponential age. I really do believe this. I know that that's the tagline, but I really do believe this. This is the next generation of learning spaces and learning design. It's not just about furniture. It's not just about colors and fabric. It's really how are we changing this landscape of learning. Not education, of learning in general. I want to thank you for your time. I'm Bryan Dean, I'm a space futurist. Let's talk about the future.